State of Play features Mark Eichman and Margaret Aiken, who brings her consultant credentials to the discussion, and Steve Martelli from the Wilmington City Council. All right, panel, we've kept our audience up to date on newsworks.org/Delaware on the penalty phase of the Derek Powell murder trial. But here's the question for you guys. Is it right to bring so much emotion into these discussions? Now, in the courtroom, we've seen and heard a lot of tears going on in the sentencing phase of the Powell trial. Is that right, Margaret?
I think, yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is the penalty phase of it. This is where you decide what punishment should be meted out. And I think all of that information, who this person was, what impact it's had on his family, his friends, his community, I think that's an important part of it. So yeah, I think it is. It's not the factual part, it's not the trial part, it's the penalty phase part where this all comes in. And I think it's important for the victims too to have that type of closure, right, that type of ability to talk about what this has done to their lives.
And in a case like this, where you have a trial that goes on for several days, it is all about the facts, but there is so much emotion that builds up when you go through these facts. You have to let it out at some point. The family really has to get this off their chest, don't you think?
And I think that's one of the, there's been a lot of talk that the penalty phase has a negative impact upon the victims' families and what that does. But I agree. I think it can be very cathartic for the victim and has an opportunity, or for their families, has an opportunity for them to maybe talk about things that they haven't felt comfortable talking about to anybody, and that's a rather public forum, mind you. But maybe they haven't felt comfortable, verbalizing the impact, the loss of their loved one. In this particular case, Officer Spicer. But that is significant when you're making a decision. That that's what. I think when you come down to specifically a death penalty case, it's certainly not about rehabilitation. I think it's clearly about retribution.
Right.
And who is it for?
It's at that point you got to make a decision as whether you're the judge or the jury. What is the best recourse here, and who was impacted to what extent, and base your decision on that.
And obviously that impact is a lot of emotion. So for that to come out, that's the time.
Sure.
Let's go back to that. Who is the death penalty for? Is it justice for the family, or is this something that grieving families don't want to go through?
The death penalty?
And the whole process of coming up with the penalty.
I think it depends on this, the specific instance that you're talking about. I mean, some families seek the death penalty and others don't, in their...
Right. In their healing.
In their quest for it. So, I think it depends. I mean, the death penalty is clearly a topic that generates a lot of discussion. Mm-hmm. Here, you have to be death certified, I think, in the state of Delaware, right, to be on a death penalty jury. So you have to be willing to make that the punishment. And, it's tough. Personally, I don't know if I could be on a jury that would make that kind of decision. And,
I've always said, half jokingly, half seriously, that I'm not really sure where I stand on the death penalty, because if it impacted me, where one of my loved ones were killed in a situation like this, I would be the one on trial, because I would probably take matters into my own hands. Not that that's right, obviously, but it's a very, very difficult decision to make, to take the life of another human being, regardless of what you think about that person. It's from a guy who's been in combat and had to make decisions similar to that. It's a situation where it's not an easy decision. In that case, it's you or them. But in this case, it's more of a thought processes, but it really deliberate. But also with that emotion, it really puts everything into perspective. And as a juror, you can say, this person acted so recklessly, so had such wanton disregard for human life that they ruined this entire family here, and it's not just the wife, it's not just the mom and dad. I mean, think about it. It's so unnatural for a parent to bury a child. It's just that to me would just, as a juror, I think, do it for me.
And there's been a lot of discussion recently on the length of time between when you're sentenced and actually when they carry out the execution. I think it's something like 10 years is the average.
When was the last one in Delaware? Going back to 2005?
When the guy made him build the gallows, right? What was his name? I forget, but.
Right, but I mean, this is irreversible.
Right.
So if it takes 10 years to exhaust the process, I think that's probably a smart thing to do.
What do you think about the defense in this particular case, where The defense says that Powell was emotionally and physically abused as a child, and that basically this was a train wreck waiting to happen, almost as if this was fate. Something bad was going to happen, so that makes it less heinous.
I don't know how you can I don't know how you can ever say the taking of someone's life is less heinous. You know,
those are my words. The rest are the defense's words.
I mean, I just don't know how to have such a reckless disregard for someone. You know, there may be a lot of mitigating factors, and I understand that. I understand that there's a lot of things that go into shaping. You know, when kids are at the developmental stage, that what is done to them will significantly impact them as adults. But as an adult, you make a decision to possess a firearm. Nothing in his childhood made him possess that firearm that evening. Nothing that happened, in my opinion, that happened in his childhood made him fire that weapon at Officer Spicer. Nothing in his childhood made him steal a car or engage in that criminal activity. There's mitigating factors that may impact his decision-making cycle, that may impact his the path that he led in one way or another, but nobody put that gun in his hand, but he chose to pick that weapon up.
But the jurors might not agree with Steve, so that's why this penalty phase, this portion of it is important, because that not only does the prosecution get to say this is the impact that this has had on this family, on this community, but the defense also says, you know, this is the situation that this kid was raised in, and this might mitigate what he's done.
And it certainly does bring the topic into discussion every so often, and when it does come up, it is usually heated. Just walking around Georgetown, obviously a very small town, about 5,000 people. Everybody's kind of there in that circle. The courthouse is there. The restaurants are right around the corner. And we're walking around town with a camera, so people are coming up to us going, what happened? What happened? And we said, well, we don't know. We're kind of doing a slightly different story. But everybody has an opinion. It seems like the people that are for the death penalty are the ones to approach you and say, what happened? Well, I don't know anything. Well, he should blank. Fill in the blanks. All right, so there's no way to adequately segue into the next topic, so I'm just going to dive right into it. Turns out Chris Coons is a funny guy. The senator was a featured speaker last week at the Washington Press Club Congressional Dinner in D.C. Here's some of his stand-up material.
The organizers asked me this evening, particularly, to be short. I will be brief. I am always short. But I really wanted to be here. I thought it was important to be here, because if I learned any one thing from the exit polls of the election in my state of Delaware, it's that there are thousands and thousands of Delawareans who really wanted a senator who would say lots of laughable things. There are a lot of people who think she's really the only reason that I won. Well, that and my perfect hair. Folks, I'm not kidding. All of this is natural. And the reason why Scott Brown's days as the sexiest man in the Senate will soon come to an end. Actually, I asked the vice president what I would most like about service in the Senate, and he said, you're going to love the health care plan. It covers hair plugs.
That's pretty good. I mean, we've seen that before, but that was actually pretty good. I don't know how much of that he wrote, but it's all in the delivery, and he was nailing it there.
And that is a big deal, that Washington Press Club. I mean, you shouldn't underestimate what he did that night. You know, that is the elite of the Washington Press Corps that are all there. He was one of 4 invited speakers. They were all new to Washington, and he just hit it out of the park. I mean, he was funny, his delivery was great, and that really introduces you to the folks that are movers and shakers down there, the people that are going to call you to book you on a show or get your comment for, you know, the Washington Post the next day said he was the standout.
And for a lot of those folks, they probably saw a side of Chris Coons that they had never seen before. And publicly here in Delaware, we really didn't see that. Behind the scenes, I'm sure you guys have seen it. He's very witty. He's very smart and funny. But I mean, he would literally, when that camera was on, he was, we're in business now.
Yeah, he goes so cerebral when he's talking. You know, answering a serious question. He's so serious and so, you know, he's a very smart guy, and he speaks so well that this side of him never really had an opportunity to come out before.
And in retrospect, I mean, he didn't have to go down that road, but, you know, if people needed to see more personality, obviously it's there, but you can't really criticize Chris Coons for saying, well, where was that in the in the campaign?
Well,
because
that was absolutely the appropriate place to do that. I mean, it's a serious. He ran in a serious campaign. You know, there's tough times that we're facing right now. So I think that would have been very inappropriate for him to be, like a walking, comedian. But he did a really phenomenal job that night, and I think it's going to serve him well.
Yeah, and you wonder how much input he had because I mean he did not want to go anywhere near Christine O'Donnell, insulting her or talking about that in any way during the campaign, but had no problem there.
Yeah, he unloaded a little bit, and I think it was it probably felt really good to get some of that out.
Surprised we didn't have a rebuttal from Christine O'Donnell.
Well, I mean, I thought. Like, I'm with you, Margaret. I thought he was just brilliant. I mean, he was. I watched the clip and I was laughing hysterically. And a lot of it, I thought, which is very much the senator's personality, was a lot of self-deprecating humor, which was brilliant. I thought. Yep. But you're right. There's a time and place for everything. And I had an opportunity to attend a couple of fundraisers where you did see that side of him, that comedic side. But he's a very, very bright guy. And he's very serious. He takes his job very, very seriously. He takes his charge very seriously, and the responsibilities. And that's what you want in your senator. I mean, and when there's time to lighten up, he'll lighten up with the best of them and make a joke. But
you need a balance there. I know there's some politicians here in Delaware that perhaps take the comedy to an extreme level. No names, but
why are you looking at me?
I wasn't looking at you. You're not funny at all.
But you can't express how important that was, that event for him. I mean, that was really his introduction to a lot of the Washington press corps, and he just did a great job.
I wonder how they select that. If it was, I mean, obviously Delaware was the topic during a lot of this, so maybe they kind of forced it upon him.
Yeah, the four folks they picked were all new to Washington, and I'm sure because of the notoriety of that campaign that sort of played into it. But
that was like comedy all last fall. Not saying that the campaign was comedy, but that was the source of a lot of comedy on TV. So,
but it was an interesting choice for them because Chris wasn't, known for, as we said, he wasn't known for his, comedic efforts during the campaign. So, I think he really surprised a lot of people, and I think, very pleasantly surprised a lot of people, and I'm sure he'll get a lot of bounce from that.
All right. Chris Coons, good job, and panel, of course, as always, very good job. Thank you very much. Mark, Margaret, and Steve.